Hi everyone, it's Kelly from Kelly's Bead Boutique. So I get asked all the time, how can I possibly sell my jewelry in a market so saturated with other people trying to sell their jewelry? Well, hopefully some of the tips I give you today will help you along your journey. So I started off at craft fairs just like everybody else. I did the first one in a little school gymnasium and, I did about $500 and I couldn't believe that anybody would even buy my jewelry. So I actually used that as an opportunity to look around a lot at that very first show. I wanted to see what other people were doing. I didn't want to copy them. I didn't want to be like them. And I didn't want to be fearful of what they were doing. I just wanted to make sure that I knew what was going on. So I'm going to give you a few tips that might help you along the way. So one of the first things you want to make sure that you have figured out is your branding. Now what's that? Well, that just means that you want to have things like your name for your business figured out. So when I first started my business, I was still working for the National Police Force, the RCMP, and I worked in the jail. Now I worked with a lot of French-speaking people, so I really liked that whole sort of French vibe. And I wanted something that sounded unique. Well, it wasn't unique at all, but I wanted a Belle Bijou. So that was what I started off as. Now, the Canadian government didn't like that name because it was French. And even though we're a French-speaking country, they didn't like that. And they said I needed to put something English in there. So they told me that I had to put the word designs behind it. So I became Belle Bijou Designs, which I absolutely hated. And so for 2 years, I think it was, I suffered with that name, did not like it. People kind of knew me as that, but I just really didn't feel like that was representative of my brand of jewelry, who I was. Nothing fit. So as I got a little bit larger in my business and I ended up in so many stores, I decided to take that as an opportunity to rebrand. And I simply became Kellie Sutton Jewelry because I knew I was never going to change my name. So it was easy enough to do it then. I was creating a new website. It was sort of the perfect timing. So don't make a mistake in the beginning and have a name that you really just don't like. Make sure that you've done a little bit of research, that you can get a website with your name on it and all those sort of things. So, be creative and have something that really speaks to you and is representative of you. So another part of branding is all the little things that you're going to use to show off who you are. That will be things like business cards and maybe tags that you have off of your jewelry, maybe a sign for your booth, all that sort of stuff. So you want to decide on a color that you're going to use. Because I was sort of in that French theme, I started off with pink and black, which was, very sort of French chic. But then over time, I sort of progressed to things like, I think I had like brown and blue, go figure, I'm even wearing it. That's what I always kind of liked. So, you want to choose colors that you like and that you think might look good in all applications. So now speaking of things like tags and maybe earring cards and things like that, you want to make sure that you're thinking about it before you ever venture off to getting them done. Now, back when I was doing it, I had them printed up at a local printer, and I made the mistake of having them done on glossy paper, which was not a good thing because they marked up like crazy. So what I found over time was just a simple, flat, kind of heavy cardstock worked best. Nowadays, you can do all that at home. You can go to any place that sells cardstock. You can use programs like Canva and create your own in the comfort of your own home, and you don't have to pay a lot of money for them. So make sure that you have all that kind of stuff figured out. I found that something on the smaller side worked really well for bracelets and necklaces. So I had a little card that just had my name on the front, and it was about 2 inches long by about 1 inch high. I punched a hole in it and I attached it to my jewelry just using a piece of cording. And I would put a number on the back, sort of like a stock number. And then I had the price of the jewelry on the back. And for earrings, I had an earring card. And I had one that it was sort of like a card like this, but it had like a little fold over so that when it was sitting on a table, it wasn't laying flat, because what that does with earrings is it makes the earrings kind of bunch up. And I never liked that look. So I really took time to think about all of the things that I was going to be using in my branding. One of the worst things I think you can do when it comes to branding is use those cheap little black earring cards that I see so many people using. You know which ones I'm talking about. The little black ones that kind of have that flocking on it with two little pre-punched holes. And if you turn it over, there's probably a little sticker on the back, and it's oval and it's gold and it says made in China. You don't want somebody to pick up one of your pairs of earrings and think that they came from China. So you want to make sure that you also have an aesthetic that speaks to your brand. So if you are making things that are like, really refined with beautiful pearls and it's very elegant jewelry, you don't want to pick really wild, sort of bohemian, crazy, psychedelic colors that just kind of clash with your vibe. You want to make sure it all kind of works together. I kept things really neutral because I wanted my jewelry to stand out and not my branding. So on my website is where I use things with a bit of color, but in almost all of my tags, they were simple sort of ecru color. And I had not quite a black, but like a dark chocolate kind of color on top of it. And that worked really well. And it was just a nice backdrop, and it let the jewelry speak for itself. So if you are going to be doing any kind of craft shows, you want to make sure that you have a cluttered and really well put together display. So real estate at these shows is very expensive, and so you want to make sure that you're using it to your best advantage. And what is that? That usually means going up. So scour through thrift stores and salvage places, or maybe your own basement or cupboards, and try and find really creative ways to display things. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to buy all kinds of busts and things like that. You can, reuse things. You can use vases to hang necklaces off of. I did all sorts of creative things in my booth so that I didn't have to spend a lot of money. But what you want it to look is really put together nicely. Like, I wouldn't mix and match a whole pile of different textures and colors. I would keep it all very simple and just make sure that everything's nice and neat and organized so that when somebody comes up to your booth, they can see your jewelry and not be distracted by a booth that really just doesn't make any sense. So one of the things you really want to make sure before you go any further is have your pricing on point. So now I'm not going to speak to the pricing today because I actually have a really good video that talks to that, and I will make sure to put a link down below. So I really suggest watching that. If you haven't watched it, make sure you do. If you have watched it, maybe you want to watch it again to make sure that your pricing is right where it should be. So another way that you can stand out above everybody else is to know who your customers are. So I have a staff member who makes really cute jewelry, and she's been doing all kinds of shows for the last year or two. Now, she has found that some shows do way better than others, and that's because she's selling to a certain demographic. She sells to a much more young sort of crowd. So if she's going to a show that is, maybe filled with a whole pile of people that are like my age, she may not sell as much because maybe I'm not going to look at jewelry that is sort of geared towards people that are on the younger side. So before you ever go to a show, make sure that you understand what kind of show that it is. I like to sort of preview shows. I spend a lot of time kind of going and looking around at them. You want to make sure that you go to shows, attend them, and see what sort of demographic they have. You can also ask the person that's putting it on what kind of people walk through the door. Is it a predominantly young crowd? Is it an older crowd? Because if your jewelry is sort of specific, you want to make sure that the people that are going to buy it are walking through the door. So know your demographic before you ever go to a show. You also want to make sure that you're opening yourself up for all sorts of opportunities. So I started off at farmers markets, and it was not really the best experience because we have, in Vancouver, we have a lot of rain, and sometimes that was challenging. But what it did was it opened me up for an opportunity that I hadn't even thought of. So I had a lady approach my booth and asked if I would be willing to sell my jewelry so that she could sell it at home parties. And I said no. And I don't exactly remember how it all kind of transpired, but I ended up working with her, and she ended up being a fabulous person to work with because she was so well connected in the area, and she did home parties every week. She did sometimes 2, 3, 4 in a week. So she would come to my house, she would buy my jewelry at a wholesale cost, and then she would go to a show that she was doing in people's homes, and she would sell my jewelry, and I think she sold a couple other things too. And she made a lot of money, and I made a lot of money. So although at first it didn't seem like it was going to be a good fit because I didn't understand how that would work, what it did was it got my jewelry out into the hands of the public. People really got to understand who my jewelry was. I made sure that she still sold my jewelry with my tags on. She had to sell it as Kellie Sutton Jewelry. She couldn't sell it under another name or with no name at all. So, if you're going to do something like that, you want to make sure that you have a solid foundation to it, that you know what you're doing before you do it. But be open to all sorts of opportunities. And when you're doing these shows, that's your time to shine, because you never know who might come up to that booth. Somebody might come up with a really great opportunity. Maybe they've got a fantastic store, or maybe they have some sort of marketing thing that they can present to you. So be open to all kinds of opportunities. So I really suggest knowing who your competition is. Spend a little time going to some of the shows and see who is doing the shows. What kind of jewelry are they making? What kind of displays are they using? Do they have lots of people working behind the booth? What have they got going on? It will help better prepare you for when you go to do your own show. I never looked at it like competition. I just looked at it as an opportunity for growth. So don't worry if the girl across from you is selling her bracelets that are kind of like yours for $5 cheaper. Do not lower your prices to meet hers, because you don't know what she paid for them and you know how much you need to make. So use things as an opportunity for growth. Don't stand in fear, but know who your competition is and make sure you are being true to yourself. Don't try to be like everybody else. There's really no point in having 6 vendors that are selling jewelry and they're all making leather wrap bracelets. So you can make a couple of leather wrap bracelets, but don't make that your full focus if that's what everybody else is doing. So I also believe that if you're going to be doing a show, that you need to be really engaging. One of the things you need to do is make sure that you show up and look the part. You don't want to show up wearing the sweatpants that you had on yesterday with the t-shirt with the milk stains on it. You want to look nice and presentable. Make sure that your hair's done and maybe throw on some lipstick, a little makeup if that's your thing. But you want to look nice and you want to look approachable. The other thing that I really like to do with a booth is try and invite people in. So instead of having a booth where your tables are out in a U where people are on the outside, reverse it so they're coming inside to your booth. That way you can engage with each customer that comes in. I don't like to be a pain with people when they come into my booth. I didn't ever want to be, overbearing and be, bugging them too much, because if you start chatting with them too much, then they're not looking at your jewelry. But you just want to make sure that they know that you are there. Now, the worst thing you can do is to show up for a show, be sitting on a chair, on your phone, head down, not engaging in any sort of conversation with people, or even just a simple smile or a nod, or making a compliment. If somebody's walking by with a fabulous jacket on, you can stand up and say, "Oh my gosh, I love your jacket." You want to be approachable. If you are sitting at the back of your booth and all kind of cowered over and just not paying attention, you're not going to have any traffic at your booth, because people are going to pick up on that vibe. So always kind of look the part and be ready for whatever might come your way. So I'm also going to mention a few things that you can do to kind of amp things up a bit. One of the things that I think is really important is having an email list. So you can have just a little clipboard with a piece of paper where people can write their names and their email address, and maybe exchange that for their name being put in for a draw for a free pair of earrings or something like that. But with that, you don't want to just collect all these names and then do nothing with them. So there's so many really great newsletter programs that are really easy to use. You want people to remember you. And so if you get all these people's addresses, you want to make sure that you're keeping in touch with them. You want to send them, maybe a new collection that you've got, send them some pictures, or you want to tell them about a show that you're going to do, like where the show is at, what kind of parking situation, what forms of payment are being accepted, all those sort of things. And that way people will know where you are and they're going to seek you out. They're going to be like, "Oh yeah, I have to go to that show because Kellie's there. I want to make sure that I see her new stuff because she showed me a picture of a brand new bracelet and I just love it." So use those emails. That's why people give them to you. Now also, you're going to have people that are going to ask to be unsubscribed. You're going to get snarky emails where people just say, "Unsubscribe me," and just, not be very nice. Don't take that kind of stuff personally. People will happily give up their emails, and then they sometimes regret it after and think, "Well, I'm not really into jewelry anymore," or "That just wasn't my thing." Don't ever take any of that stuff personally. People come, they go. The people that love you will stick around. I've had some of my customers from over 20 years ago still sort of be in my circle. So when they like you, they'll stick around. Another little thing that you can do, but it's not really so little, is offer things like free jewelry repairs. So now that has to come with a bit of a caveat. You want to explain to your customers how to take care of their jewelry. Suggest things like, keeping it in a sealed bag so that it doesn't get exposed to the air. Make sure they don't wear it to bed, or they're not wearing it in the shower, all those sort of things. But you can also tell them that if for some reason it should fall apart within the next year or so, that you will offer to repair that for free. Now, of course, if somebody's really aggressive with it, you have to sort of weigh those things, but I just looked at it as another selling opportunity. They would come by, I could maybe show them something else, so I offered that all the time, and it was a really nice thing. And it really, I think I might have got a couple things back, but you know how sometimes just a jump ring will fail and people think, oh my gosh, my jewelry is broken, I can't wear it. But if they know how to get in touch with you, because you've got that really nice little business card that you gave them from the beginning, right? So, or they're on your email list, then you can actually keep in touch with people. They can keep in touch with you. And, those are just little service things that people really do appreciate. So another thing that you can do to stand out is to create yourself a website. Now, I know that makes a lot of people really scared, but you can just go to Shopify and get a really inexpensive, really pretty website for, I think that they have, I don't know if they have free ones any longer, but you can do it very, very inexpensively. And if you don't know how to do it, just find a teenager. They can do all that sort of stuff. It doesn't have to have hundreds of pieces on it. It can just have a few. Use it like a place card holder where you've got sort of just a few pictures of what you do. But it allows customers to find you. If they want to get in touch with you, or if they want to see if there's anything new, they can come back to your website. So I really strongly suggest that it's something that you at least think about. I know it's not for everybody, but in this day and age, when we are all online all the time, I really feel that a website is a really important part of having a jewelry business that is successful. And with that, I also strongly believe that you need to be on top of your social media marketing game. Now, I know that I get so many people say, well, I don't do Facebook or I don't do Instagram, things like that. You have to. I don't enjoy that part of my business, honestly. I find it tedious sometimes. It's like, oh gosh, I don't want to do that today. But you have to. It's kind of like me doing this video right now. This is part of my social media, doing a YouTube video. It's what helps drive sales. People like you. They feel a connection to you, so they want to watch you. So you have to get comfortable with it. So if you're not comfortable with it, spend a little time on Instagram, watch people's stories and reels and look at their pages and see what do you like about it. And again, not that you're trying to copy, but you're trying to see what are people really engaging with? What is it? Is it their personalities? Is it their product? What is it? Do they have a certain design aesthetic where everything kind of looks very similar, like all of their pictures have that same sort of vibe? Things like that. So you have to have social media presence these days. Apparently people spend up to 40% of their day on their phones, just scrolling. If they're eating their breakfast, they're scrolling. What you want them to scroll by is your product. So I know it doesn't make everybody comfortable, but it's a must these days. So having said all that, just spend a little bit of time on social media. It will make all the difference in your business. And lastly, one of the best pieces of advice I can give is don't try to be good at all of the things in jewelry. So one of the things that I have happen, not often, but on occasion, I will get a customer will reach out and say, I've been doing local craft fairs and shows like that, and I am not finding any success. People aren't buying my jewelry. Would you mind looking at it? And it is my least favorite thing for people to ask me. And not because I don't want to do it, but because I generally know what's going to come across the screen. So usually I'm seeing things that are outdated, not with the times. Maybe they are poorly made, or they're made with where it's just kind of haphazard. They haven't taken a lot of thought into putting together really nice looking jewelry. They're maybe just using, some old beads they had kicking around, and they're just sort of slapping some stuff together. That is not going to draw anybody into your booth. You need to spend time cultivating your craft. But don't try to do it all. Do a little wire work, maybe a little macrame, whatever it is that you're wanting to do. But I find that the booths that I go into where my eyes don't know where to land or rest because there's just so much going on, those are the ones that I just don't stick around in because there's just too many things and I don't know what I like at any of them. So I really like booths where I can really get a sense of who that artist is. What do they like? Oh, this person like excels at macrame and they do all these really cool macrame pieces. I might stick around in there because it all sort of looks like it's supposed to work together. So really, take some time to hone in on your skill, whatever that skill is that you really love to do, and make yourself the best at it. So my thing was wired wrap loops. I was really good at making the perfect wire wrapped loop. Like my loops were always just on point. And that was what I was known for. And people used to comment all the time, gosh, your jewelry looks so perfect. But I'm a perfectionist. That's what I wanted to do. So that's how I got known, was having sort of perfect looking jewelry. May not be for everybody because now that sort of, more messy style is in, but that was how I got noticed. So if I can impart any wisdom, it's, be true to yourself, create what makes you happy. And at the end of the day, with all of this, yeah, we're trying to make money and it is a business, but make sure to have fun along the way. Because if you're not having any fun, why are you doing this? So I hope that some of these tips might help you in the future for some of your, selling of your jewelry. If this video resonated with you at all, if you got even one thing out of it, please make sure to give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and let me know some of the tips that will work best for you, because I do love to chat with everybody online. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please make sure that you do so, as it really does help my channel out. I want to thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.